Kenyans and fellow Kenyans from the fourth estate, the media. Concerned Citizens Movement wish to state as follows. Concerned Citizens Movement is an organization which is concerned about the wrong direction our country has been taking under the current leadership in Kenya. This has caused severe social and economic strains on Kenyans, except those who thrive on plundering the wealth of the majority. The severe socio-economic strain has caused frustration and desperation in many Kenyans. We have seen this in many cases of suicide among different levels of citizens, including salaried workers whose employment proceeds are unable to give them decent livelihoods, as well as desperate Kenyans who keep calling on the government to help them, and others who relentlessly cry for help because they are denied public service for which they pay tax. Concerned Citizens Movement has keenly studied the Constitution of Kenya 2010. We arrived at the conclusion that the country will greatly benefit if we amend Cap 1 of the Constitution of Kenya to enable citizens directly recall the president, deputy president, and any other elected leader at any point of their tenure if they do not serve the citizens satisfactorily. This amendment would bring self-discipline to all elected leaders and make them focus and practice leadership of serving the people, not self and cronies, that is, servant leadership. Our main agenda at CCM is to push earnestly for the constitutional amendment and enforce good leadership and governance. We appeal to all Kenyans to support this initiative by informing others, persuading their elected leaders to support, and by providing their signatures when we call upon them. CCM applauds all the young people of Kenya, and particularly the Gen Z, for redefining in action what public participation means by stepping boldly forward to reclaim our sovereign power from our leaders. We urge the President to accept that a revolution has already taken place and that the issues that have emerged are: 1, accountability; 2, 1, accountability; 2, economic liberation; 3, governance and oversight, which are majorly leadership issues. However, since the President took office on 13th of September 2022, he has been unable to demonstrate to Kenyans his ability to make any decision that emanates from a stroke of genius. And given the crisis his own government is going through, he is unable to solve the issues he found in office and those he has created while in office. We are also aware that the President has called for dialogue, but the current atmosphere is not conducive for dialogue. The President has run a government in which no one would bet on either his word or his CSS, PSS, or security officers and any other state officer. That is why his leadership reached a point that Kenyans shouted and are still shouting, "Ruto must go." Mr. President, the bottom-up economic transformation agenda has not worked and will not work. Kenyans believe that all their problems begins and ends with you. It is the President who pushed the unpopular bottom-up economic transformation agenda. It was him whom pushed Parliament to pass the unpopular Finance Bill 2024 and was also the same who rejected it upon pressure from Kenyans. He is the one who appointed the incompetent and corrupt cabinet that he has just dismissed. It is the president who presided over misplaced priorities, spending, wastages in government, and even the latest police brutality, which now makes him and his government candidates for crimes against humanity, as several bodies have been discovered in dam sites, and still the search continues and more bodies continue to be discovered. It is now our candid submission that national dialogue cannot be productive under such circumstances. The president needs to admit that a revolution has taken place and that a revolution spares no general. Consequently, the current revolution won't end by his simple action of dissolving the cabinet or by resignation of some top officials and formation of government national unity, since Kenyans are not divided, but Kenyans are actually seeking government reforms. They are united in seeking governance reforms and economic revolution. Our recommendation is that the president realizes that he has lost legitimacy that he was given by the people of Kenya and seek fresh mandate by calling for a snap election between 60 to 90 days. We have to embrace best practices in governance, and legitimacy is key in any governance process. For the opposition, we would like to remind you that you are in this crisis mainly due to failed leadership that has especially killed the independence of our key institutions, such as Parliament, Anti-Corruption Commission, IEBC, IPOA, among other institutions. In that regard, Kenyans, especially Gen Zs, are watching as the opposition slowly deteriorates into an appendage of the executive. Finally, we appeal to all concerned Kenyans to stay the course of putting our leaders to account through lawful means. Let us work jointly to amend the Constitution so that we can truly have separation of powers and real checks and balances between the executive, legislature, and judiciary. That way, our young people will never have died in vain in the Gen Z revolution. We believe that Kenyans brutalized by the executive shall get justice, and Kenya shall stand proudly in the community of democratic nations. Hakuna madaraka bila mamlaka. God bless you. God bless Kenya. Thank you. You can summarize in Swahili.
No, it's okay. Yeah. Tell me when you are ready. Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, Kenyans. I am Dr. Joseph Mugashia, and I'm a convener of the Concerned Citizens Movement. I would like to add a few things on what my colleague, Professor Ogola, has said. I want to look at the issue of dialogue. The president has called for dialogue, for national dialogue, and he's putting up a team to do national dialogue. But we want to make it very clear that Kenyans are not interested in dialogue. And the reason is, dialogue has been had for many times, over many times, since the multi-party democracy was embraced in Kenya. We have seen a lot of meetings, but the reports are selectively implemented, and majority of what is presented is never implemented. We don't want to go into another situation where we are discussing issues that are already in writing and which form part of the instruments of power that the president has. Mr. President, we want, as concerned citizens, we want to bring to your attention that you have all the documents required to run this country properly and get us the development and the level of service that Kenyans are looking for. We want to point out that we have the Constitution of Kenya. That is the main document which constitutes part of your instruments of power. The second is the laws of Kenya, which make the Constitution operational. And then finally, we have the government policies that the executive formulates in a participatory manner with the citizens. These three documents constitute what we can call the governance and leadership manual for the president. Therefore, if you implemented those documents, then we don't need any dialogue. We would we would appeal to you that you form a plan, you share a plan of action to make corrections, and then we will gauge the rectification according to that plan in due course. It is only then that we can sit to discuss how we can enhance your plan of rectification of the nation. But going into dialogue now, we want to support what the Gen Zs are saying. We don't need dialogue. And all Kenyans we have spoken to, they also say the same. We do not need dialogue. We need action based on the instruments of power that we have bestowed as citizens on the president and the whole leadership of the Republic of Kenya. Thank you. Now, do Kiswahili?
You can.
You want to do Kiswahili?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, on the issue of dialogue, we just believe that the country is gasping for breath because the executive is stepping on their neck. They can't breathe. The finance bill, the economic situation cannot allow them to breathe. So you cannot dialogue with somebody who is stepping on your neck and you can't breathe, you are gasping for breath. So what we are saying is that the reducible minimum, with the agencies have told them, us as concerned citizens, we support those irreducible minimum and we would like him to implement them so that we can move forward. And just to add a little bit why we also try to tell opposition to stay away from dialogue in totality is because the opposition earns money and draws money from the taxpayers' money for a particular purpose and role they need to play. Because the opposition has leader or minority. Leader or minority cannot take opposition towards dialogue with the executive as if they are consultants for the executive. The executive, like my colleague Joe has said, has got a manual to do, and therefore they should stay away in totality from the dialogue with the executive, because then if they want to move to work with the executive, then they should be able to return back the resources they are getting. The political parties funds all those parties depending on the MPs they have and the vote they received during the last election. And therefore, we want to urge the opposition, stay as opposition, just like you want judiciary to be judiciary, just like you want legislature to be legislature, and also just the same way you want citizens to be law-abiding. Kwa ufupi, sisi ni concerned citizens. Na tumeona ya kuwa nchi haiendi kwa ile mwelekeo ambayo inafaa iende, ndio maana tunasema kama tuko concerned na ile mwelekeo nchi yetu imechukua. Uongozi wa Rais William Ruto ilianza siku ya Septemba 13, 2022, na kuanzia hiyo siku tumengoja kwa hamu na gamu siku ile William Ruto atafanya ile uamuzi ambayo itatuweka kwa kile tunasema turning point ya kwenda kwa nchi ambayo imestawi. Lakini siku inapita, miezi inapita, kama mwezi inapita, mwaka kwa mwaka inapita, hatuoni kama kuna wakati kama huo inakuja. Ndio maana kama sisi concerned citizens tunasema ya kuwa tukuje pamoja, tuanze kuleta ile uongozi ambayo imekosekana. Tumeona kama rais Kuna watu wamekufa kwa sababu ya maandamano, kuna police brutality, watu wamekufa. Kuna watu wengine mwili zilikuwa zimefichwa sijui wapi, sasa zinapatikana, ambazo zinakuwa hata zinaweza kuwa kama crimes against humanity. Wananchi kama Gen Zs wametuonyesha kuwa kuna vile tunaweza kufanya public participation in the best way. Sasa tunataka kuwaunga mkono, wameonyesha public participation, wanarepresent sisi. Sasa hata wao ndio wanajeshi wetu kama wa Kenya. Sisi tunataka kuwaunga mkono, nataka kuona kama wakifanya maandamano yao, hata kama wanasema nataka kufanya Tuesday tarehe 16, ifanyike kwa wakati wa amani, vile wao ni wapenda amani. Serikali isilete mambo watu wanaleta tear gas na bunduki. Tunajua watakuja na handkerchief, watakuja na maji na simu. Sasa tunaomba pia polisi pia wakuje tu na handkerchief na maji na simu, ili wasikuje na bunduki waua watoto, kwa sababu those kids wako na nia mzuri ya nchi na kila mtu anawaunga mkono. Kwa hivyo haiwezi kuwa polisi peke yao ama serikali peke yao ndio wanaanza ona kama wako wrong. Tumekubali wanafanya kazi yao, tunataka rais akubali, lakini sisi tushajua revolution ishafanyika. Revolution huwa haiwezi kuacha general mwingine. Hata sasa kama William Ruto anajifanya kuwa anafukuza cabinet, ama kuna wengine maafisa kubwa serikalini wana resign, au zote ni generals, yeye pia ni general. Sasa revolution haita spare yeye. Revolution goes with all generals. Sasa itamsweep mpaka yeye. Kwa hivyo hatutaki nchi yetu iende kwa anarchy. Sisi kama concerned citizens tunataka nchi iwe na ustawi hata kwa wakati wa revolution. Kwa hivyo tungemwomba njia mwafaka. Wengine wamesema resign, wengine wamesema sije avunje bunge, wengine wamesema njia zingine, lakini tumeangalia, hata tukiangalia katiba, njia mwafaka ni ya kuwa rais aite snap election kwa siku 60 ama 90 ijayo, ili aende atafute fresh mandate. Kwa sababu baada ya kuweka hizo mambo zake ya bottom up, hasla hapa, cabinet yake ambayo is incompetent, akatuletea hizo mambo za sijui ufisadi mingi na hiyo cabinet yake. Yeye mwenyewe alisema amefuza cabinet kwa sababu wengi wao wako corrupt, na yeye mwenyewe ndiye aliwaleta. Kwa hivyo yeye pia vile amefukuza hao cabinet, akitaka kutengeneza cabinet wao pia wata apply tu kama yeye. Kwa hivyo yeye pia kama rais pia ajue ya kuwa ile legitimacy yake alipewa na wananchi pia imeenda, na njia mzuri ni aitafute tena. Na hizi zimefanyika kwa nchi zingine, kama ukienda sehemu kama UK, kulikuwa na David Cameron alipeleka watu wa UK kwa mambo ya Brexit. Vile Brexit ilivunjwa, yeye pia alisema anaenda nayo. Umesikia vijana wanasema anguka nayo. Sasa kama kuna mambo yako umeleta na imeanguka, anguka nayo. Kama hustler fund imeanguka, anguka nayo. Kama cabinet imeanguka, anguka nayo. Ukileta mambo ya tuseme hii fake fertilizer imekuja, anguka nayo. Sasa chochote ulileta wewe pia anguka nayo. Na ndio sasa wakati ikifika wakati ya kufufuka, ufufuke nayo. Ndio maana tunasema arudi atafute mandate. Na mwisho ningetaka kuwapongeza wa Kenya waendelee kuwa na utulivu na amani. Tuko bado na haki ya kwenda kuandamana, na tuandamane kwa amani, na pia tunataka serikali tukikuja kwa mtani kwa amani, wao pia wakuje na amani, na sisi tunaweza kuwa coexist kama citizens. Nchi mzima haijakuwa na haina mambo ya kusema unataka kutengeneza serikali ya government of national unity, kwa sababu hakuna disunity Kenya. Wakenya wote wako united wakitaka uongozi mzuri, wakitaka masuala ya tuseme uchumi itengenezwe, wanataka economic liberation, wanataka maisha ya mzuri, ya maisha ambayo inaweza kuleta ustawi siku zijazo. Kwa hivyo hakuna haja ya kutengeneza government of national unity. Tunataka tu kurekebisha yale mambo ambayo inaharibu nchi yetu, ambayo ni ufisadi, uongozi, tuseme a lack of accountability na mambo kama hayo. Asante.